But there was one incident I felt deep shame over for a long time. That one took a while to acknowledge. Once I did, I saw great value in it. So I'll tell you about it now. Maybe you have one like it. In 1996, at the age of 13, I was banned from every UK branch of Woolworths for shoplifting. I stole an Ian Wright Premier League Corinthian figure. For those who didn't care about football or aren't from the UK, a Corinthian figure was a popular football or soccer figurine with a head of caricature proportions. Still in my school uniform, I nudged the toy from its display and let it fall into my school bag before making for the exit. Just as I tasted the fresh air of freedom, a large hand landed upon my shoulder, and I was spun 360 degrees, then diverted down a dark passage in the bowels of the department store, where they took my details, each of them juddering and rasping out of my tightening throat like a haulage truck in a traffic jam. My legs had set like concrete, and in my petrified mind, it was all over. I very nearly pissed my grey trousers. It turned out that an undercover store detective just happened to be close by at that perfect moment. I wasn't a bad kid, mischievous at times. I had that common dangerous combination of being curious, energetic, and in possession of a brain not well suited to the academic model of remembering things well and regurgitating them in an exam hall. So I wandered around my passions of football, fantasy video games, comics, and Blur, without knowing what to do with them. My lack of drive in the classroom meant I sometimes misdirected my energy. Fortunately for me, I had a loving, stable family life which provided ample guidance and patience. This trust was also the source of my terror over finding myself banged to rights in a dark room without Ian Wright. I knew this was a huge misstep and I'd be crushed under a skipload of disappointment. The kids I knew who had been far less fortunate in their home life continued to pour their prickly energy into increasingly worse channels in the absence of a positive foundation. The store detective dropped me off at home, having phoned ahead to ensure that the option of silence was confiscated. I tottered up that road on jelly legs, and by the time I arrived at the back door to the awful realisation that the radio was off, I'd concocted an even wilder story of pure fiction in a desperate effort to absolve myself of sin. Ironically enough, years later, my own fiction would be built upon such everyday occurrences on the underbelly of society. We all have a shadow self. I wrote about this in my new book, The Creative Condition. Carl Jung was big on it. The idea that for true inner peace we must embrace and assimilate all the dark parts of ourselves into our personality. Repression and lack of acknowledgement can lead to self-defeating unconscious decision-making known as learned behaviours. I believe this also forms a barrier to our optimal creativity. When I started to unpick this singular foray into petty crime, there were interesting clues about who I was, had always been, the nature bit, and the man I would eventually become, including certain advantages in my creative industry career. For context, I'd stolen a cream egg or two and added a couple of comic books to the sleeves of the ones I did pay for, before the Ian Wright scandal nipped my criminality in the bud. We weren't a wealthy family in a financial sense, so the frustrations of my £3 a week pocket money collided with an insatiable desire for these objects of affection. And here is the first realisation. When my passion flares, it motivates me in a way my school teachings hadn't managed to.